Hey, this is Dr. C. Hope you're having a good day. Today we're going to talk about taste and smell. I guess what brought that on was the fact that I had this long COVID and at the beginning totally lost my taste and smell with the first episode that I had. This was about a year and a half ago. And now I've got about 25%, something like that, left. But that's the way it is, so you compensate. But that stimulated my interest in those two sensations. Because, we have other sensations that are probably more important: the vision, the hearing, um, the sensation around the body, the feeling. So that taste and smell is pretty important, actually. So let's delve into that a little bit. I'm going to use my previous experience too, because, yeah, I was a wine snob for quite a while, and but you learn a lot with that, and especially with smell and taste. So let's go into it a little bit from that aspect at first. When the whole taste experience begins before you even put anything in your mouth. You look at a label, for example, of a wine, or you have previous history. You know that a particular vineyard is known for a particular wine. So you have an expectation. Believe it or not, your brain has retained that as part of your memory and makes you want to have that particular and taste that particular wine. So the history is a little bit involved with this. So what do the wine connoisseurs do when they start their wine taste? They have their bottle. They know now the vineyard, the wine itself. Now they pour a little bit into the glass and they look at it. So there's a visual component too. Is it nice and clear? What is the color, etc.? Is there any sediment in it? All that is important. Tells you a lot about the age too of the wine. So there's the visual aspect. No hearing aspect involved, so we don't have to worry about that. So then they smell it, the sniff component. So the olfactory nerve, the nerve that innervates the smell part, that gets involved. And there's a whole wheel, a chart. It's called the aroma chart. Gives you all the different aspects of that particular grape or whatever, but all the different types of growths, etc., where it's grown, temperature where it's grown, what the constitution of the soil is, all that gets involved with that aroma. That's called a primary aroma. It comes from the grape itself. Primary aroma. The secondary aroma comes from what the vintner, the guy who's making the wine, what process does he use? Does he keep the liquid on the skins for a while? Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he blends it. It's all up to the vintner. That's why there's so many different varieties of a particular wine. So that's the aroma part. The bouquet, that's different. The aroma comes from the grape, and the bouquet is what the vintner does that makes it different, makes it special for that particular vintner. Okay, so the bouquet is one step up. One step up. Now, what do I mean by the flavor? The flavor is everything that's involved with taste, not just the actual taste itself of the material you're eating or whatever, but the olfactory, the smell part, everything else is involved in the flavor. Now, there are also one more component that the winemakers do, and that is they may age the wine. They age it in oak barrels. Now, these oak barrels are not just raw oak. They put the torch to the inside. That gives the wine a lot more flavor, you might say, of the oak. It'll turn a Chardonnay, for example, it'll give it a lot more of a vanilla flavor. So all these things, so that's a tertiary aroma. Tertiary aroma. So I'm getting off on the wrong side, I know. But what the heck? Like I said, that has a lot to do with taste. You get an idea now that a lot of different a lot of our senses are all related to that taste. That taste. Now, what happens when you put a piece of whatever, whether it's fruit, whatever you put into your mouth? How does that work? How do you interpret that as a particular taste? Let's say a strawberry or whatever it is. How does that happen? Well, when you put it into your mouth, you have saliva in the mouth. That saliva liquefies because it has enzymes in it. Remember, there's amylase, there's all sorts of enzymes in the saliva, and that helps to dissolve whatever, whether it's a sweetness, sugary, whether it's an acid, whatever it is, that saliva makes it come about. Then there's little nerve endings that are in the taste buds. And the taste buds are on the tongue. There's 3 different kind of taste papillae. They're little bumps on your tongue. You know, look at it in the mirror sometimes. Stick your tongue way out, you can see them, because in the tongue itself, on the back of the tongue, those are the circumvallate papillae. Each papilla on the back of the tongue has about 30 to 50 taste buds. The taste buds themselves are just like little, little pieces of garlic. They have that little oval shape, really, at the end. They're really tiny, but they are composed of the outside part that has the chemoreceptor, and the saliva delivers something sweet, something whatever, to that taste bud. Now the taste bud itself is connected to the central nervous system. And the central nervous system, through 3 cranial nerves. They can go through cranial nerve number 5, which is the facial nerve. They can go through cranial nerve number 9, glossopharyngeal, and then they can go through cranial nerve 10, the vagus nerve. So you got 3 nerves that are involved with all of this as well. And so when that chemoreceptor tastes a certain thing that has sweetness, for example, it'll send that back up into the brain, and it'll go along a channel that will then go to the central nervous system. Goes through a ganglion in the brain stem, which then gets sent up to the thalamus. The thalamus is sort of the relay station, sends it over to what they call the gustatory cortex. That's sort of right in between the frontal and parietal lobes on the 2 sides. And all of whether the taste is sweet, whether it's bitter, whether it's salty, whatever the taste happens to be, it all goes through those channels, and it winds up in the gustatory cortex of the brain. Okay, so far so good. So far so good. So let's go on from there. We have those circumvallate papillae in the back of the tongue. We also have the foliate papillae. They also have senses, those little taste buds in there as well. The ones on the back tend to have more of the bitterness. So they sense a lot more of the bitterness, but they also can sense all the other things. You don't just have one sense in one part of the tongue. But the back usually is known as better for the bitterness. And so the ones, the foliate papillae, those those taste buds sense the sweetness and sour as well. The ones on the front, towards the front of the tongue, a little more towards the sweetness, and the sour on the sides of the tongue, mostly. But all of them have all of those components. They all do. Now the salt is separate from those. Again, it's all over the tongue, the salt, and it depends a lot on sodium going through the little channels and all. So that's why sodium chloride will sense the salt. Okay, because that is the other sensation that we have. And then finally, there's the umami. There's 5 different flavors, you might say, 5 different. The umami is usually, they call it the savory part of the flavoring. You get the savoriness from MSG, for example. Now remember, MSG used to have a bad name. Gave you headaches and bad stuff. Don't have anything with MSG. Well, that was nonsense. That never panned out. Never did. And so, basically, MSG is a good flavor enhancer, and it's part of that umami. Yeah, okay. So, 5 different senses, you might say, in that tongue, and it's interpreted by the cortex of the brain. Good. Okay. Now, there are problems with taste. There are problems with it as well. And so, what are the problems? Well, you can have problems with one of your senses. Like, say, you can't smell very well. Let's say that you got exposed to something that totally wiped out your olfactory, your sense of smell. That's going to affect the taste as well. So that part there, you got to consider that as well. The olfactory, the smell part now, there are little receptors way back in the nasopharynx, way back. And those receptors pick up on the scent. Again, it goes through the olfactory bulb, up into the brainstem, up to the thalamus, and then into the olfactory, not the gustatory cortex, the olfactory cortex, which is, again, in that portion of the brain. And that interprets whatever the smell is. So, okay. So now let's go on. There are some conditions that will wipe out taste and smell. Obviously, viruses can do it, because the COVID virus was notorious for that. Remember when COVID first came out, they said, roughly 6 to 8% of people will get loss of taste and smell. That was total BS. There were a lot of disinformation at the beginning. But now we know that up to 60% of people have taste and smell affected. 60%. That's a little more accurate. And a small percentage of those permanently lose it. So number one, viruses can cause loss of smell and taste. What else? Age. The older you get, the taste buds themselves shrink, and you begin to get a diminution of the chemoreceptor ability to send those signals up to the cortex. So that has age. At 85, I'm supposed to have maybe 25, 30% of what I had when I was first born. We have about 10,000 of these little taste buds at birth. Now, hey, I probably have 500. But nevertheless, that's another thing. So age does influence taste and smell. Medications do too. Medications. Now, how many times have you heard people say, well, gee, ever since I was taking that medicine, everything tastes like metal or whatever. But that is one of the side effects of medication. Certain medications, not all. Certain medications will cause that sort of trouble with taste as well. You can get a condition called hypogeusia. Oh, I should tell you a few things too. We use the terminology for smell, it's osmia. So if you lose your sense of smell, it's anosmia, or hyposmia, or dysosmia. All these are all affections of the scent. Now for taste, the suffix is juicia. So ajuicia, you can't taste the damn thing. Or hypogeusia, reduced amount. Or dysgeusia. Now there's also a condition called phantageusia, which interprets that this has to do with that brain, that portion of the cortex that interprets all of that data that's coming from the mouth and the tongue and all. It interprets that as a lousy taste. So that's called phantageusia. Phangeusia. Okay. Now, it's not just the mouth that is involved with all of these little receptors, chemoreceptors in the papillae. We have receptors in the cheeks, receptors in the palate, receptors in the gut, because the receptors in the gut are the same as the receptors in the tongue. And so why do you need them in the gut? Well, they sense, for example, glucose, sugar. They sense that. They send the message back to the brain that that, hey, there's too much sugar in this, okay, we got to cut down on that. Got to cut down. So we've got receptors all the way along the gut. Yeah, they're not as many as or concentrated as they are in the tongue, but nevertheless, they're there, and they have to be dealt with as well. Now, what can we do to get our taste and smell if you lose it? Can you ever get it back? Well, I don't know. I don't know if you can get it back or not. Because remember, age is also involved. If you go by my experience, I don't think I'm ever going to get it back. Because now age is playing a role in it as well. So which one is causing more of a problem? Who knows? Who knows? So at any rate, what can we do to get it back? Well, if I went to the doctor, of course, he'd say you're nuts. Okay, yeah, I am nuts, but nevertheless, do something for me. Get me my taste back. Okay, we're going to put you into a program, and it's called Smell and Taste Retraining. Whoa, okay. So what do they do with smell or taste retraining? Well, they stimulate. You can stimulate the olfactory nerve for the smell and stimulate uh, the three nerves, the vagus, glossopharyngeal, and facial nerves, stimulate those to try to get it back, retrain. So you got to do this on a daily basis. So they'll choose maybe 5 or 6 different types of aromas for the smell, and 5 or 6 different flavors for the taste. And so they do that every day. They take a little bit of this, a little bit of this, all 5 or 6, and they do that daily, trying to get the taste receptors to start working again, or the smell receptors to start smelling again. It's actually pretty successful. They tell me, at least in the literature, that up to 60% of people get it back as a result of this retraining program. So, smell retraining. Now, another aspect is they change the texture of whatever you're eating. This has to do not with smell, but with the taste. They change texture because there is a texture type of receptor as well in the mouth, usually on the cheeks and the palate, etc. Different thicknesses of the material you're trying to evaluate, trying to eat. So that's called the texture, the different levels of thickness, etc. That's in there. So I know because I can feel that texture. I can't taste it, but I can sense a change in the texture, and that I equate that to a particular food. Well, my brain does anyway. So they focus on the texture. They may focus on the temperature, whether it's hot or cold or whatever, tepid, whatever. That has an influence. And there are sensation fibers as well that pick up on the temperature. Usually they're a cheek, palate, mucosa all the way around in the mouth. They pick that up. You have to be well hydrated no matter what kind of therapy you're using. So hydration is very important as well. Using a lot of these different techniques, some of them claim up to 90% getting back taste and smell. Now, if it doesn't come back, what else can we do? Well, more recently, they're looking into stellate ganglion blockade. Now, the stellate ganglion is a ganglion that's right up against the backbone, and you have to inject it right up here, in deep towards the backbone. It's a ganglion of the sympathetic nervous system. We used to do stellate ganglion blocks. Occasionally, we did it surgically when it got the stellate ganglion out on a particular side. But nevertheless, they'll do bilateral stellate ganglion blocks, and then when they got the block, when it came back, a little bit of the taste and smell came back. Okay, stellate ganglion block. Still not approved, but that is in the stages of approval. Okay. What else? Well, there's a couple of medications too that people will swear by, and one of them is called canavorstat mesylate. Canavorstat mesylate, and apparently by taking some of this orally, a lot of the taste did come back, at least with some people anyway. Again, it's not an approved therapy, but it's out there. It's out there, and there are studies anyway, ongoing, using that particular medication and all. Okay. I should mention that The people who lose their taste of lose their taste sense, the gustatory sense. Um, there's no rhyme or reason. There's no particular disease like diabetes, whatever. Makes no difference whatsoever. This has a direct effect from either the virus or whatever on the nerve endings. It has nothing to do with anything else other than that. Okay. Now, people, I said that at the beginning, that saliva has a lot to do with whether you can taste or not. And what about people with dry mouth, like Sjogren's syndrome, for example? They can't produce a lot of the saliva. They have dry eyes, dry mouth, etc. How is their taste? Well, you have to lubricate the mouth, obviously, and so you have to drink a lot of water. You got to really keep that up, and because you have to dissolve, if you're having a meal, for example, you got to drink some water with it because you got to dissolve the sugar, the salt, etc., so it can then get into all these little taste buds in the beginning. So yes, it does affect the ultimate taste. So I guess that's about all I have to say about it. I'm not very hopeful that I'm going to get mine back because of my age now, but nevertheless, we learned a lot about taste and smell and their interactions. This is Dr. C. Have a great day.